Hello, my friends. Oh, there's so much to tell you, but let me start here. Once upon a time, it was my first day of school. And I had my new jeans on, I had my new sneakers, I had my big red backpack, and I was ready for the first day of school. Unfortunately, I was late. So when I got into the classroom, there was only one seat left, and it was right in front of where the teachers had all of their stuff set up. And I squeezed my way in, just trying to be cool, being late, being the last person there, and I managed, with my new big red backpack, to knock over some water that immediately went spilling toward the teaching materials, and I panicked. I'm the oldest daughter in an Irish Catholic family, so of course I decided I would fix this, and I ran out to get paper towels, couldn't find them anywhere. Eventually found my way to a kitchen where there were some paper towels, got them, realized I was lost and could not find my way back to the classroom. Eventually got back into the classroom and victoriously, flung open the door, had the paper towels ready to be of service, ready to help, and it was already cleaned up because there was a classroom that already had paper towels in it, ready for just this sort of thing. But everybody knew my name by the end of the first day of class, which was great because I was 54 years old when I did that. And Sherry knows because she was there. It wasn't Sherry's computer the water was headed for, fortunately. But that is not where I thought I was going to be when I was 54 years old, running around like a crazy person with a big red backpack and sneakers looking for paper towels. That is not what I thought 54 was going to look like. So I would invite you to take a moment to think back when you were a kid. Maybe you're old enough to have remembered, I wonder what I'm going to be like when it hits the year 2000. But a lot of you are not old enough to do that. But think back when you were a kid. What did you think being older was going to look like? What did you think you were going to look like when you were older? Because my bet is that you were wrong. My bet is that you have turned out to be someone much more glorious and interesting and exciting than you ever would have imagined at that time. But what I'm going to be talking about today, yes, we'll be talking about generations, certainly, but one of the things I want to point out is that there is so much money being spent on this kind of thing. I hope there are no generational consultants in the room. The U.S. businesses spend more than $100 million a year on generational consulting. The flip side to that is that when there was a meta-analysis done of 20 different studies looking at more than 20,000 different people, their attitudes, their perspectives, how they chose to live their life, how they chose to operate in the workplace, they found that generations basically didn't exist. So officially, I guess my presentation here to you today is to talk about the generation trap, but I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, so if you're on Zoom, maybe don't listen, but generations are bullshit, y'all. That is what I'm here to tell you. They are arbitrary, they come from nowhere, they are marketing tricks, and they do not bear any resemblance to the humans that you are going to be encountering in your life, in the groups that you're facilitating, and the groups that you're working with. So let's just put that out there now. We may be given this image, but it is useless. It is not something that is going to help us at all. The fact is that there was a big study done by Pew, and they're fancy, right? Pew Research, they know what they're doing. They went to people and asked them to identify what generation they thought they were in. Y'all, they even gave them options. They weren't asking them to just make up some cohort. They were asking their option, and most people could not put themselves in the right group. So if that doesn't tell you that this is a completely artificial construct that does nothing but limit us and keep us apart from one another. I don't know what else you need. It's aggravating. Here's a quote I love because it doesn't have swear words in it, but I still love it. And it's that the idea of generations is marketing is a modern form of snake oil. It is a way to try to explain the ills in society. Oh, millennials don't care about this. Oh, boomers are a pain in the neck. None of that is true, and all of it is reductive, and it makes us small. And, I hate that. The fact is that we're all aging. We're all getting older. And one of the things that is so important, Matthew talked about it, Stephen talked about it today, is the sense of belonging. That if we want forward momentum, if we want movement, if we want progress, if we want to advance toward our aspirations, people need to feel as though they belong with one another and to one another. And aging, if we are also fortunate, is the only group that all of us are eventually going to be part of, right? If we play our cards right and we eat the healthy food provided by Voltage Control, and we don't eat too much of that rice, although, gosh, it was good, wasn't it? We are going to age. And the great thing is a lot of businesses now are paying attention to this, but not enough. Well, DEI programs are on the rise, as they rightfully should be, as we begin to start to recognize the whole human as they come into the workplace. Only 8% of companies are addressing ageism as part of their DEI efforts, because it's kind of invisible, right? These generational labels that we use as shorthand are just taken for granted, that we can talk to each other that way and say, they used to have beanbags over here. And Josh would say, oh yeah, because the millennials want, beanbags. Well, not necessarily. Millennials don't necessarily want a particular kind of furniture. So here's my sigh of relief that I have around issues like this. And this is a quote from Zaza, and I practiced this too, Cabayadondo from Sesame Workshop. And her perspective is this, that design is implicated in all social problems. The reason for that is because oppression and exclusion and cutting people out and making people feel less than or small or different than or othered is not part of the natural order of things. That's something we create. And if we can create it, we can uncreate it. So I knew I was with my people. So my invitation to you as we continue to explore these things is to think about where design and design thinking might come into play in some of these more thorny issues in our workplace. Even when it comes to things like policy, we're all probably pretty familiar with this basic framework, but I just want to share it with you. I'm a pretty new facilitator myself, so I appreciate the reminders. Sometimes there are a lot of frameworks out there. So the design framework we'll be talking about today starts with empathizing, right? You want to get into the mindset of the people that you are trying to serve and connect with. You want to define what the issues are. You want to ideate, brainstorm, come up with some solutions, and then hopefully prototype and test. We're not going to do all of that today, unfortunately, but I'm working on a longer workshop. But we'll start here, right? So let's talk about empathizing. This is a great place to start. If you think about your workplace or think about the team that you work with, it is so important to remember that ageism and age bias doesn't just move in one direction. HR complaints, more than 40% of those come from people who are under 40 in the workplace, who are being made to feel less than, who are made to feel that their contributions aren't significant, that they aren't ready to participate in those conversations. Comments like, you girls, could you take that chatter over to, I'm trying to work here. That kind of thing, you might not necessarily think of it as ageism. There's some misogyny in there too. There's probably a whole bunch of intersections happening. But that's a real thing that happens. It is not just people on the older end of the spectrum who are being marginalized. It can also be people who are newer to your organization, who perhaps don't yet have the confidence to speak up. And there is a lot to unpack here, because when you think about it, yes, there's a lot of external work that could be doing, but internalized stereotypes are so powerful. So one of my invitations to you is to see if there's a way that you can start a conversation about that when you're working with a group of people. If you're noticing the folks on the younger end of the spectrum are not participating perhaps as vocally or as actively, is there a way that you can reach to them? There is a profound disconnect for so many young people in their belief in the contributions they can make in terms of reverse mentoring. Anybody here over 30? Anybody here over 40? All right, if you're over 40, you need a mentor under 30. And I was thinking, you can start here. I try to keep a couple on deck at any given time, and I've got a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old who help me keep it real. But thank you. Yeet is the word of the. Yeet is so over. Okay. The next thing we want to move into is starting to define what the problem is, knowing your landscape. And I want to do a little bit of myth busting while we have our time together today. And here are a couple of things. There's a lot on the screen, but the one I really want to call out is about young people. Young people are the ones learning new things. Sure. But so is everybody else. When you look at the studies that are out there and people who are interested in self-development, people who are pursuing new interests, you see that number does not decline significantly over a lifetime. It hangs out about 60%. No matter if you're talking to people who are just out of college, people who are thinking about grad school, people who are getting ready to retire, or people who are thinking, I'm not going to retire, I'm going to do this other super cool thing. It's about 60% of people are actively interested in learning new things. There's so many of these generalizations that we have been fed from the time that we were small. And we've been talking about it all day, but we've got these opportunities as facilitators to help people unlearn some of these things and perhaps relearn something new, something fresh. Then we want to ideate, and I would like to give you, you've got a couple of minutes. I would like to give you the opportunity to get together at your tables and think about one of these opportunities in your workplace. Oh my goodness, and these glasses are new. I can't read that. Let me go over here. The idea is that we've got three options, right? The first thing that you can think about disrupting is the policies and procedures in your workplace. That might be something you want to tackle. That could be everything from family leave and what happens with childcare issues if school gets canceled. Apparently, some school has already been canceled in Austin for Friday. They're just proactively canceling. So good luck with your childcare, y'all. So that's one set of things you might look at. Let's see what the other things are, because, I can't read those because they're really small. All right, the next one is to think about, do you have something in place in your organization where you can start to avoid generational emphasis? Do you have a young employees group? Do you have a group especially for people over 40? Do you have a boomers club or something like that in your organization? And if you do, how might you unpack that? There's an example that Douglas was talking about the other day, this idea of a physical histogram, that you might put people together in your organization and say, all right, all the people who love Joni Mitchell, come to the front. They're all not going to look the same. They're all not going to be the same age. There's going to be a wide variety in your organization. So can you start playing with that? When I did this workshop previously, one example a group came up with was the idea of playlists and having different ages of people put playlists together and seeing what kind of variety of music that everybody found compelling. And then the last one is, are there some opportunities? You may not be at the top of the org chart or in a position where you can change organizational policy, but you can model, right? You can lead by example. So maybe that's something that you can think about. How might you lead by example in busting some of these myths and getting people to shift their thinking away from boomers always and millennials never to thinking about the actual individual humans that you're working with. So if you wouldn't mind, just have an informal discussion in your Zoom rooms. You might want to do more of a thoughtful reflection or a journaling, or you can certainly put it in a mural. Thank you to our sponsor. But I'll give you 2 minutes for that. All right, let's bring it back. All eyes on me. I didn't wear this dress for nothing. Okay. Thank you. So let me just close with a couple of pro tips. If you want these, I'm happy to send you these slides. There's way too much text on here, but the main important thing is finding that mentor, the mentor who's not you. You are not your user. And this is a perfect example. I want to share with just someone who inspires me. You've probably seen this meme. A time or two. How do you do, fellow kids? It's our friend Steve Buscemi. And I am pleased to tell you that this Halloween, this from Halloween 2021, he dressed up as that meme and gave out candy on his front step, because he's badass. If you'll notice, the Twitter account is Wu-Tang is for the children, which is important Twitter account to follow. If you want to talk to me about TikTok, I'll talk to you about that. Whatever you need, I'm down with the kids. So thank you for listening.